"This table's for family, Mom. Why don't you find a spot outside?" Carter's words cut sharper than the chill in the air. He didn't whisper them. He laughed as he said it, like it was a joke. Like I wasn't his mother standing there in the restaurant foyer, holding a small paper gift bag, trying not to drop the framed photo inside. Rachel, his wife, smirked. "We're already packed in. Maybe there's space near the patio." I glanced down the long table. 12 seats, everyone taken. Even the end chair, the one I thought I could quietly slip into, had a handbag on it. No one reached to move it. My hand tightened around the strap of the bag. Inside was a card with the same handwriting I used to put on lunch notes and an old photo of Carter at age 5, missing front teeth, frosting on his nose, laughing in my arms. I had spent 20 minutes dusting that frame before I left the house. I didn't argue. Instead, I stepped back, found a chair from a nearby empty table, and pulled it slightly away from theirs. I sat down just outside the glow of their laughter, close enough to hear them, but not close enough to belong. A waiter approached, a little confused. I just smiled and asked for a coffee. "Black, please." Behind me, someone ordered champagne. Carter's voice rang out, bragging about his promotion. Rachel chimed in about how exhausting her spa week had been. They didn't look my way once. I set the bag on my lap. I wasn't even sure I'd give it to him anymore. I used to think being present was enough, that showing up meant something. But tonight, I felt like a ghost, like they'd invited the memory of me, not the real thing. The server returned with my coffee. I nodded politely, hands steady now. Let them toast without me. I had nothing left to prove, and deep down I knew they hadn't asked me here to celebrate. I watched as Carter raised his glass, his voice clear and proud. "To success," he said. "To family." The words sat heavy in my chest. Waiters circled them like moths to flame, delivering trays of Wagyu lobster tails and bottles of wine with labels I couldn't pronounce. Rachel laughed too loud. Someone clinked their glass against Carter's and called him the Golden One. I stirred my coffee slowly. Still hot, still untouched. My stomach felt tight. I had skipped lunch to make room for dinner, and now there was no room for me. I remembered the night Carter chipped his tooth on a frozen pancake. We didn't have dental insurance. I worked 3 jobs that year: day shift at the post office, evenings cleaning offices, weekends restocking shelves. It took 6 months to pay off the dentist. I never told him I sold my wedding ring to cover the down payment on his braces. 3 jobs, 2 states, 4 landlords who didn't fix anything, 1 son, and now this. Rachel snapped her fingers at the waiter. "We'll take the chef's sampler for the table," she said, not even glancing in my direction. "And creme brulee. We're celebrating after all." I looked at Carter. He was leaning back, talking about his latest bonus. His tie clip flashed under the pendant lighting. Gold, not fake. He didn't once turn toward me. Not when I walked in, not now. He knew I was here, he just didn't care. The coffee went bitter in my mouth. I used to imagine moments like this. Carter grown successful, laughing with people who loved him. I just thought I'd be sitting beside him when it happened. Instead, I sat alone, the gift bag still on my lap, growing heavier by the minute. They didn't invite me to celebrate. They invited me to witness. And I had a feeling I was about to find out why. The laughter had softened by the time the last wine glass was emptied. Plates licked clean, chairs pushed back, Rachel dabbing her lips with a linen napkin like royalty. Carter was still talking. Something about closing a deal, stock options, the usual performance. I was about to quietly excuse myself when Rachel caught the waiter's eye and flicked her wrist, as if waving off a minor inconvenience. "She's got it," she said, nodding toward me. "Don't worry." I thought I misheard. The waiter looked uncertain, then glanced at me. I hadn't spoken a word to him since ordering my coffee, but now I watched him approach with a soft black folder in his hand and a tight smile on his face. He set it down in front of me. Not beside, not between, directly in front. I blinked once. Carter didn't even look up. Rachel was already halfway through a conversation about their next vacation. Someone murmured, "Thank you," like it was a given. I opened the folder slowly. The number stared up at me. 3498.72. I let the silence hang. No one reacted. No one shifted. It was as if they thought this had been the plan all along, and maybe it had been. That's when I knew. I wasn't invited out of love or nostalgia or any scrap of sentiment. I was the wallet in the room, a prop, a silent sponsor to their celebration. They thought I would be too polite to protest, too ashamed to make a scene. I closed the folder. Not hard, not loud, just deliberate. my fingers wrapped around the edge of the coffee cup, still warm, still full. So this was what family meant to them. I didn't say a word, but I was done pretending I didn't see it. I lifted the cup slowly, the steam curling against my face, and took a careful sip. The bitter heat steadied me. Around me, the table buzzed again, voices rising and falling as if nothing had happened, as if I were invisible. Rachel leaned back, draping an arm over her chair. "It's nothing for you, right?" she said lightly, eyes glinting with a rehearsed sweetness. "You've got your retirement, the house sale, all that. This is just dinner." I didn't answer. I glanced at Carter. He kept his gaze fixed on his phone, scrolling as though a stranger had been handed the bill, not his mother. His shoulders gave a small shrug, casual, practiced, like this had always been the arrangement. No one reached for a wallet. No one murmured a thank you. The air around the table thickened, waiting for me to do what they'd decided I would do. I took another sip of coffee, slower this time, letting the silence stretch. Years of night shifts had taught me how to hold still, how to let noise pass over me without flinching. I thought about every check I had written, every corner I had cut, so Carter could have more than I ever dreamed. That life had taught me patience. Tonight it was teaching me resolve. Rachel laughed again, a high, brittle sound. Carter finally looked up, his eyes flicking to mine for the briefest second. I held his gaze just long enough for him to see there was nothing left to give. He blinked and looked away. I set the cup down gently on its saucer. The sound was small, but it cut through their chatter. Rachel's smile faltered. Carter's thumb hovered above his screen. They were still waiting for me to fold, but I had no intention of folding. I had been quiet long enough, and my silence was about to become something they had never heard from me before. I picked up the bill with both hands slowly, like it was heavier than it looked. The folder creaked slightly as I opened it again, just to be sure. The number hadn't changed. I turned and laid it down right in front of Carter. "You said I wasn't family," I said, my voice even. "So family should pay." It was like someone hit pause on the entire table. Every fork stopped midair. Every laugh dried in the throat. Rachel blinked first, her napkin dropping to her lap as if her hands forgot how to hold it. "We don't have that kind of money," she blurted. Carter didn't move at first. Then his jaw tightened and he leaned forward slightly, voice low. "Mom, don't make a scene." "I'm not making anything," I said. "You made the rules. I'm just following them." I watched him flinch at that. Just slightly. Just enough. My eyes moved slowly down the line of faces. Some wouldn't meet my gaze. Others looked mildly annoyed, like I was ruining their dessert. Carter pushed the bill away from him like it might catch fire. "You always do this," he muttered. "You make everything about you." A flicker of heat lit in my chest. I leaned in just enough to make sure he heard me. "No, Carter. You did that the moment you used me as your bank account and called it love." Rachel looked around, expecting someone, anyone, to rescue the moment. No one did. "You think I can just cover a $3,000 dinner?" Carter hissed. I smiled, small and sharp. "No, I think you assumed I would. That's the difference." He opened his mouth again, but the words didn't come. Behind him, the waiter hovered, trying to look invisible. I sat back in my chair, folded my hands calmly in my lap. I wasn't going to raise my voice or argue. I didn't need to. I'd already shifted the weight of expectation back where it belonged, and I wasn't picking it up again. I remembered the day Carter called me after college, panicked, humiliated. He'd been evicted, said his roommate bailed, and left him with a bill he couldn't cover. He tried to sound casual about it, but I could hear it in his voice. He was scared. I didn't even hesitate. I cashed out half of what I had in my retirement fund, drove 3 hours with a check in my purse, and signed the lease for him. First and last month's rent, security deposit, utilities, grocery money. He hugged me briefly in the parking lot, then ran back inside to show his new place to some friends. He never said thank you. The calls kept coming. Tuition gaps, car repairs, just until next month. I always found a way. Sold the second car, took on a roommate, stopped buying fresh fruit. None of it was recorded. No contract, no ledger, just a mother giving and a son forgetting. But this past spring, something changed. I received a small inheritance from my sister, just enough to do something I'd only dreamed of. I drove south, found a sun-baked adobe cottage by the river, and signed the deed myself, paid in full. No one knows. Not Carter, not Rachel, not anyone at that table. I planted herbs in clay pots, painted the shutters pale green, and filled the kitchen with the sound of wind chimes instead of voices asking for more. Sometimes I sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and wonder what would have happened if I'd told him no just once, if I'd taught him limits instead of always absorbing the cost. Now, watching him flinch at a restaurant bill, I realized he never learned because I never let him. He thought I would fold again tonight, but I wasn't that woman anymore. Rachel's voice cracked at first. "Please, Teresa," she whispered, pressing a napkin to her eyes. "We didn't mean it like that. It's just one dinner." Her mascara didn't smudge, and I knew the tears were a show. Carter shifted uncomfortably, his tone turning softer, almost the boy he used to be. "Mom, you always help. Please, it's just one dinner." I looked at him. Really looked at him, the man he'd become, the man I had unknowingly built with my sacrifices. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His thumb rubbed circles into the tablecloth as if the fabric could swallow him whole. "I'm not your card anymore," I said quietly. "I'm your lesson." His head snapped up, eyes wide like he didn't recognize me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're grown, you order, you pay, you teach your own family how to live with what they choose." The waiter hovered at the edge of the scene, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I slid it back toward Carter without breaking eye contact. "This isn't mine." Rachel's breath hitched. "We don't have it," she hissed. "Then you'll figure it out," I replied. "You're adults. That's what adults do." I could feel the tension ripple through the table, a low hum of disbelief. No one reached for their wallets. No one spoke. Carter opened his mouth again, then shut it, jaw flexing. For a moment, the room felt smaller. Their laughter and confidence shriveled into silence. I pushed my chair back, slow and deliberate. "You said this table was for family," I reminded him. "Then tonight, family can take care of family." His lips parted, but no words came out. I stood, placed the gift bag on the empty chair, and turned toward the exit. My heels clicked once, twice. Then the sound of them faded into the hush of the dining room as I walked away. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back, the heavy door closing behind me like a final punctuation mark. The night air was cool against my skin, steadying me. I didn't hurry. I didn't need to. Every step I took was deliberate, a small reclaiming of ground I'd been giving away for years. They thought tonight was my breaking point. They didn't know it had already happened, long before the bill hit the table. That morning, I had sat across from my lawyer in a quiet office 2 blocks from the courthouse. A pot of coffee steamed between us. The papers were neatly stacked, waiting for my signature. Carter and Rachel's names, once written with so much hope, were lined through in clean black ink. "Are you certain?" the lawyer had asked, sliding me a pen. "Yes," I'd said, my voice calm. "It's time." The new beneficiaries were already listed: a scholarship fund for single mothers trying to finish school, a small grant for women starting over after divorce, and a donation to the literacy program where I volunteer. Not 1 cent to Carter and Rachel. I signed every page without pause. When I finished, the lawyer placed the documents in a folder and pressed my hand gently. "You're doing something good," he said. "I'm doing something necessary," I replied. Now, as I crossed this parking lot under the streetlights, I could feel the weight of those signatures in my pocket. I had spent my life giving without measure, believing it would come back somehow. Tonight proved it wouldn't. The gift bag was gone, left behind like an old habit. My phone buzzed once in my purse, but I didn't reach for it. I unlocked my car and slid into the driver's seat, hands steady on the wheel. Ahead of me stretched the dark road toward my small adobe cottage by the river, and the quiet waiting there for me. I turned the key and eased out of the lot. By the time I reached the cottage, the sky had gone full indigo, the last light sinking behind the hills. I parked and sat for a moment, listening to the hush that only lives this far from noise. No street chatter, no glasses clinking, no entitled voices asking for more. My phone buzzed again in my purse. For a moment, I just let it sit there, vibrating against itself like some small animal trying to be heard. 6 missed calls, 3 from Carter, 2 from Rachel, 1 from an unknown number. I didn't need to guess. The first message blinked on the screen. "Mom, we're sorry, we didn't mean it. Can we talk?" The second came seconds later. "Please cover it, we'll pay you back. Promise, promise." The same word Carter used when he said he'd pay me back for the first car I co-signed. The same word he offered when he borrowed from my emergency fund to hold him over that one winter. They always promise. I turned the phone face down and powered it off. Then I opened the front windows of the cottage. The scent of juniper drifted in with the night breeze. The river just beyond the porch hummed soft and low, like it had been waiting for me to stop filling my life with noise. I set the kettle on the stove. Not for them, not for a guest, just for me. Inside, the cottage glowed warm and gold, the kind of light I never had time to notice before. No drama here, no tension, just shelves filled with books I hadn't yet read, and a quiet corner where my sewing box sat untouched. I poured the water, took the mug to the window seat, and watched the stars blink through the clouds. Somewhere Carter was pacing. Rachel was fuming. Maybe they were already rewriting the story to make me the villain. It didn't matter, because this was the life they'd taught me to build by not valuing me. The smell of fresh coffee filled the cottage, rich and warm, blending with the quiet laughter that floated from my kitchen table. Carla, my neighbor with the loud earrings and soft heart, leaned in with a story about her first garden disaster. Across from her sat Marin, the young woman I've been mentoring through the GED program, eyes wide, chin in hand, absorbing every word. I passed around slices of peach tart and poured a second round of coffee. No one was in a hurry. No one expected anything in return. We were just here, sharing a moment that didn't come with a price tag. Carla raised her mug. "To women who've had enough," she said with a wink. Marin giggled and lifted hers. "To second chances." I raised mine last. "To tables that feed you instead of draining you." The toast made its quiet circle. There was no applause, no performance, just 3 women clinking chipped mugs, surrounded by the kind of comfort you build when you stop begging for scraps. My phone buzzed once on the counter. Carter's name lit the screen. I didn't move. Carla glanced at it but said nothing. Marin looked away politely. The phone rang again, then fell silent. I turned back to the table. "This," I said, motioning around us, "this one's for real family." We went back to talking about books, about dogs, about nothing in particular, and it was more than enough. Outside, the river moved the way it always had, steady, unbothered by all the noise upstream. It reminded me that peace had never been something I had to earn, only something I had to choose. And sitting at that table, surrounded by women who saw me, not what I gave, not what I owned, just me, I knew I had finally made the right choice. I poured another cup, still smiling, and let the old phone light up and fade again in the corner. I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. I had already arrived.